As I was looking at that last list that Keaton was showing, and kind of going back to John's earlier presentation, some of the lists of those hardware partners that you saw are also on our pipeline to sign similar partnerships with in the next quarter or two, to basically bring all of this ecosystem of software, hardware, distributor, and end customer together. Now, last but not the least, we have Juan here, who's the head of machine learning and engineering. We've seen specific examples of every single use case, but what Juan is going to talk to you about is that underlying IP and the underlying platform that is enabling all these different use cases. Juan.
Oh. Hey, sorry, one second. Yep, my name is Juan. I'm the head of machine learning, and I'm in charge of leading the development of extending our use cases of sensors to lots of different sensors and protecting our IP. And one way you can protect your IP is through the use of patents. So we have filed 3 patents, and I'll go through them really briefly. The first one is the artificially intelligent animal health monitor, which is essentially what Phil showed in his presentation. But I really want to emphasize that it's not limited to just pigs. It can be any sort of animal. That's why it's animal health monitor, not pig health monitor. The second is an artificially intelligent noise filter, and this one actually operates inside the animal health monitor because you're trying to listen for audio signals like pigs, whether they're coughing, and farms are not quiet places. So you need some way to sort of filter out the sound so you can really isolate the pig cough. But the thing is that our noise filter doesn't just work for audio. It can work for any time series signal. So why not be a standalone patent? But it operates inside there, but it can operate on many other things. The third one is an artificially intelligent uncertainty quantifier, or AIUQ for short. And this one's not going to be easy to explain. It's a little bit abstract, but I'm going to try to give a really high-level overview today of trying to show how it works. So I'm going to do it through like an example. It's going to be a little game. If I show you this picture, how tall do you think this guy is, like in centimeters? Anyone want to guess? If you try use the American system, I won't know because I don't really know feet. Nothing? Well, okay. I reckon he's about, let's say, 174, 175. And along with that guess, if I were to ask you a second question, how sure are you of your guess? If I were to say 180, how sure are you that this guy's 180? You're probably fairly sure because the guy's standing next to a car. Cars are usually standard height. So based on that, you have a pretty good idea. So this is like a illustration of what uncertainty is. And to really emphasize the point, I'll do a contrasting example. If I ask you, how tall is this guy? Yeah, you're probably not sure, right? So he's standing in a field. The grass is like, you don't know how tall this grass is. If it's like a wheat field, the guy's a giant. If it's like astroturf, the guy's a midget, right? He's wearing loose clothing. He's way further away. So if I ask you, how tall is he? You probably can give an answer. But if I ask you, how certain are you, it's going to be way different from the other one. And now to give you, I guess, another illustration of, if I give you a little bit more information. Suppose I told you it's Sam standing there. And for those who don't know Sam, I haven't seen him in real life, it's to say Bridgeway's had a basketball team. He probably, need like 4 more people. Like, I don't know American system, but he's probably like 9'20" or something like that. If I told you that was Sam standing there, even though you didn't see any other cues, the information will probably reduce uncertainty because you're probably pretty sure the guy is not 160 centimeters, right? So this is an idea of what uncertainty quantification is. Based on information, we can quantify uncertainty. And the thing is that if we can do this, using our intelligence, a function of intelligence. It probably sounds more familiar now. I've explained it to you. It's something you do every day. Every time you try and estimate something, you're also unsure about how you have an idea or some intuition about how sure you are of your guess. And actually, it's not really intuition because as I've shown to you, it's based on information. And information can be extracted from data. So if we can do it, can artificial intelligence do it? Yes, we can with our patented technology. So this is just an illustrative example. We don't actually measure height using sensors. Although I think we could probably use a camera or a LiDAR, but no, sorry, I'm just brainstorming. Stay tuned for next year where we like measure like height and stuff using a camera. Now I'll talk to an example that we actually use it in production. So in terms of air quality, suppose you want to measure air quality in a building. And air quality depends a lot of times on your air conditioning system and how fast you recycle your air. Because if you don't recycle it fast enough, air particles linger, your air gets stale, it's uncomfortable to be in. And even worse, if someone's sick and you've got airborne viruses, it's going to stay there for longer. So you want your HVAC system to be able to cycle air efficiently so that you keep recycling air and get rid of all the bad stuff, but not so strong that either you waste energy or it rips out your eyeballs from like this vacuum and stuff like that. So here is an example. I'm going to keep it really high level. Pretend that it's a number that represents air quality. So I'm not going to get into details what it is. So you've got 3 sensors and it's sitting out in a field, and together they're measuring a field for the air quality. And you want to average the value of the 3 sensors. So now you want to get into report back. You go to sensor 1, you ask it, what is the sort of air quality rating that you're reporting? It reports 20. And you ask it a second question, how sure are you of your guess? And the sensor's like, look, this is standard stuff. Nothing's really strange going on. I'm 10% uncertain. I'm really, really certain that it's 20. Like, great. You go to the second sensor, 23, uncertainty. Yep, very, very sure. Now you go to the third sensor and it reports 47. And you think, okay, that's a bit weird. It's a bit higher than the other things. But then you ask what's uncertainty, and it's saying, like, honestly, there's something weird is going on, because something weird can go on when you're measuring stuff. Either someone opens the door too fast, closes the door, walks past the thing, or maybe the sensor is actually broken and it's actually not detecting things well. So you ask it for its uncertainty, and it says, like, I really don't know what's going on because this stuff I'm not used to seeing. Now imagine that you average this without some notion of uncertainty. You do 20 plus 23 plus 47, you average it, the 47 is going to skew it up to some much larger number. But if you have uncertainty, you can set a very simple threshold. You can say that any sensor that reports any uncertainty greater than 30%, we just don't account for it. That way, that you only use 2 sensors to report your average, and you don't actually end up being skewed by some sort of outlier event or some sort of broken sensor that needs maintenance. And hope that kind of makes sense. So uncertainty quantification, there's a lot of really cool math behind it. I'm not going to go into detail here, but if anyone wants to talk to me about it after, I'm more than happy to. So that's our AI UQ pattern, the third one I showed. Now I'm going to give an example of the noise filter, which is going to be so much easier to explain. Here's a use case. Imagine that a drum company wants you to detect the snare drum. So for those who don't know drumming, the kick drum is a very low, deep bass sound. In other spectrum, you've got the crash cymbal, which is a very high-pitched, loud sort of sound. So these two are on the very sides of the spectrum, and in snare, you've got something that's sort of in the middle. It's not as deep as the kick drum, but it is much more, it's not as sharp as the crash cymbal. But when you're trying to detect the snare drum playing, when a drum is playing, it's a lot of stuff going on. They're hitting all the different kinds of drums. So it's going to be very hard. That's why you need noise filtration, because you need to be able to filter out the crash and the kick to hear the snare. So that's a simple thing of how it works. And I'll give, so here's an example of the sounds. The first one is the sound of a snare and kick drum playing at the same time. Can we turn that up, please? Yeah. Oh, this might go bad when I hit the crash, but we'll see. Okay, so you can't quite hear the bass drum, but can you see the low frequency that's going on here? Now, if we filter out the bass drum, okay, that example is not as good. So let's try the crash cymbal. You can probably tell by the illustration, this one's going to sound pretty obvious. Yeah, so that's the snare and the crash cymbal playing at the same time. Now let's run through this exact signal through our noise filter. So what do our AI systems hear after filtration has occurred? So you can hear a little bit of the crash, but much of it is gone. And let's see that actually, working. An example. So this is a video that I'm going to show. That's me on the drums, but I'm going to explain what you're going to see first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the snare 3 times. And here's my computer terminal with a AI noise filter and classification detecting the presence of the snare. So if I hit the snare 3 times on its own with nothing else, it should detect it just fine. But if I hit the crash cymbal 3 times after, it shouldn't hear anything. There should be no register of a hit because it has been trained to filter out the crash cymbal. And finally, I'm going to hit them both at the same time. And you should still be able to detect the snare, even though the crash is being hit because of the filtration system. And spoiler alert is exactly what happens. So I'm going to show this demo. So no register there. Yeah, so even though they're both being played at the same time, what the AI actually filters out is the crash cymbal and focus on the snare. Exactly what we can do as humans when we want to focus on someone speaking in a loud auditorium. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my drum solo, and that's it from me. I'm going to pass it back to Saba.